let me tell you something, brother. When I'm working on my 24-inch pythons, dude, I'm listening to Let's Find Out with Diego. Train, say your prayers, and listen to Let's Find Out with Diego. Ooh, what you gonna do, brother, when Let's Find Out with Diego runs wild on you?
And probably 30 seconds after I took the picture, the figure that I saw stood up on two legs, turned around and walked away. And it certainly was not a person, because when it stood up and walked away, I happened to notice it just barely brushed its head on the limb of a tree. So I took note of where that was, took the dog back to the house, grabbed a pair of rubber boots and a sidearm, and went back to the area. I had a tape measure with me also, because I remembered that tree limb. I measured the tree limb at 9'4" from the ground.
Wow.
So whatever it was around 9'6".
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's another episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest is an outdoors enthusiast and trained wilderness survivalist, published author, investigator, who was featured in a documentary about an event that changed his life forever. A visual sighting of a large bipedal creature while hiking in the New Hampshire Forest. This experience launched his journey into the field of Bigfoot investigations. All this plus more, please welcome to Let's Find Out the person behind the documentary Bigfoot Witness, the Jason Morse Story, and new friend to our show, Jason Morse. Jason, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out. I'm very excited to have you on.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and when Thomas told me about your story and I checked out the documentary, wow, there's so much packed in that documentary. We're going to go ahead and cover a lot of that tonight. But before we begin, my friend, because your story is an amazing story, it launched your investigation, your journey into the investigation and searching for Bigfoot. But you're also an author. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start with that because the book is called The Road to Leadville. And it brings the readers into the world of the Mulligans and a family full of trouble that the law is looking to bring to justice. So who are the Mulligans and what are they up to? What's the time period of this story in the book?
It starts around 1880, so it's certainly a Western. The Mulligans are just basically the troublemakers that have plagued our two heroes. Well, actually, there's four heroes in the book. Alec, who starts out as just a mountain guy and becomes a marshal. His friend Robert, who was a deputy sheriff and become a marshal with Alec. The dog named Tundra and a horse named Wind. They wind up kidnapping Alex's girlfriend's son, and they're out to get the kid back. In a nutshell. I don't want to give away too much.
No, of course you don't want to give spoilers. We want the listeners of the show to purchase the book. But so what inspired you to write this book? Because as I'm looking at your bio, it's a little bit different than what you do, but is that period of time always interested you?
Yeah, I've always been into the, like the Old West, Wyatt era. And I started writing the book almost 9 years ago, and work got crazy, and I took almost 6 years off doing it. And then one day I just woke up. It was after COVID hit. I had no work, and I just woke up one day and pretty much wrote the rest of the book in about a week.
Wow, that's very interesting because a lot of the folks that I've had here on the show, a lot of the guests and friends, and also my story, a lot of it begins with COVID because when everything shut down, nobody could go anywhere, but all we can do is just create things, A podcast has started, books are written, stories are written. So pretty much a week, that's pretty short though.
Yeah, I had almost half of it written already,
Oh,
and I kind of went nonstop when my job shut down because of COVID, and I was basically sitting around and collecting unemployment. So I had to do something with myself because I was going stir crazy.
I feel you on that one because I was while I was not out of work, I had to stay home for about 3 to 4 months, and then it became almost every other week. So
Mm.
for folks like us that are always trying to investigate and research and do things, we can't just not do things. So I guess creating content also is a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, well, what was worse about the whole thing was most of the state parks were even shut down. I couldn't go to one of my favorite ones where I've had experiences before, not visual sightings or anything, but I've had experiences. Pawtuckaway State Park in Raymond, New Hampshire, one of my favorite places to go, and they were shut down. Gate was locked, and you couldn't get in.
Wow, not even open air. I
Nope.
understand because even the playgrounds were closed. It was, I would say, a tad ridiculous is to understatement. But anyway, so we're gonna get part into your experience as an outdoorsman, and you're also well trained. So, how did the training to become an outdoorsman begin? Were you shadowing somebody with this experience, or did you just go in the woods cold?
Um, well, first of all, I'm a certified EMT, so that's helpful. And aside from that, I took a few online courses, did a lot of reading, and I shadowed a few people who were former military who knew, basically about wilderness survival. And that's how it began. And that was prior to my experience.
Well, and it's one of the things I wanted to dig into before we get into that. Now, prior to your visual encounter you had in the forest in New Hampshire, of course, always lots of things to see in the forest, the woods. What type of things have you seen while you were out there in the woods?
Uh, there was one time, and it's mentioned in the documentary. I talk about it. Actually, I was recording it at the moment. There was like little sticks and acorns being thrown in my general direction. It almost seemed playful to me. I've heard numerous vocalizations. There was one point when I was living in Newmarket, New Hampshire. Uh, my wife and I my wife at the time and I could hear a bunch of coyotes howling. So I cracked the window open because a big theory about Bigfoot, either Bigfoot hangs out with coyotes or vice versa. It's unsubstantiated so far, but probably the coyotes hang out with them to scavenge a kill, would be my assumption. Uh, in the midst of these coyotes going crazy, I could hear what sounded like a coyote because Bigfoot is also known to be a pretty good mimic. And I heard what sounded sort of like a coyote, but it wasn't. It was deep, it was louder, and it was kind of spine tingling, to say the least.
Now, because I know you had several experiences, and I just talk about that day. Um, I'm pretty sure you didn't go in the woods just for that, but what were you doing that day in the woods? Were you out there just hiking? Were you hunting? Or is this something that out of nowhere just happened?
I'm going to believe that it just happened. I was actually walking my dog on, we lived on a very rural backwoods, not backwoods, but back road, and very little traffic. And I was just walking the dog, and all of a sudden the dog freaked out, started shaking. It was a golden retriever, so he wasn't that brave. And he was looking off in a swampy area, shaking like a leaf. So I kind of stood behind him and eyeballed down his back where he was looking at. And I just saw this dark figure, like kind of doing this type of deal, just rocking back and forth. And a few minutes later, after watching it, I just pulled out my phone for giggles and took a snapshot, which is also shown in the video. And probably 30 seconds after I took the picture, the figure that I saw stood up on two legs, turned around and walked away. And it certainly was not a person, because when it stood up and walked away, I happened to notice it just barely brushed its head on the limb of a tree. So I took note of where that was, took the dog back to the house, grabbed a pair of rubber boots and a sidearm, and went back to the area. I had a tape measure with me also, because I remembered that tree limb. I measured the tree limb at 9'4" from the ground.
Wow.
So whatever it was around 9'6". And it was, emotionally, it was kind of overwhelming, to be honest. I was like, holy crap, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but I can't believe that I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but there it is.
Now, was this your first ever encounter? Or you had prior
Yeah.
ones before this?
That was my first face-to-face encounter, yes. I had heard the noises with the coyotes prior to that, and there was a couple times I had small objects tossed at the back of my house, landing on the deck or so forth. But that was my first actual sighting, and it was unbelievable.
That being your first experience, and I guess it would shock many, even experienced outdoors person. How did you feel? And I'm not just talking about emotionally. How did your body feel? Did you feel some adrenaline? Was there fear? What was going on in your mind at that time? And I know you said, "Holy crap, I just saw this thing," but what else was going on?
As I mentioned in the documentary, there's just about every emotion that I had hit me all at the same time. I was excited. I was scared to death. I was anxious, intrigued. Definitely had some fear, because I don't care who you are. People always say, how come there's no clear pictures or video of Bigfoot? Well, my reply always is the same thing. You try standing there and holding a camera steady while you're looking at something like that. And I don't think many people could.
Not at all. And I don't think many people would have the type of skills that you would have going on to the woods like that. So wow, amazing encounter that you had there. So let's, during what time of the day did this happen?
Strangely enough, you see on a lot of the TV shows that nighttime investigations are the time to go. This was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And how was it? Was it a hot day, a cool day, or anything like that?
I remember I had a sweatshirt on. It was March 18th, I think it was, and it wasn't freezing cold. No.
No, and one of the reasons I asked that, because a lot of different people give me different answers. So, what has, in your opinion, what has been the most encounters that you've had? I forget, is it during the day, during at night? Has it been all over the place, or is it usually one certain time during the day?
I've seen what I believe to be the same individual 3 different times, and 2 of them were absolutely at nighttime. The second and third ones were after dark because I had a flashlight on him both times.
And during the encounters later on, what was their behavior like?
He was almost like he was as interested in me as I was in him. He never showed any type of aggression. He always just kind of stood there, or he just turned around and walked away like he really didn't care that I was there or not. He just wanted to get away from me.
And I know that you mentioned earlier that you went out there with a tape measure
Mhm.
and it was about 9 foot tall. Did you look for any footprints to take any pictures or make any kind of cast out of them?
There was casting was not possible, and actually viewing footprints wasn't possible because it was quite a swampy area. There was when I when I saw the figure that I saw, the water was almost up to his knees. I'm almost 6'4", and when I went down there, it was almost up to my hips. So definitely no footprints. And I followed him the direction that he went, and it just remained all wet because obviously it was springtime, so all the snow had melted and everything was kind of flooded.
And with these sightings and experiences that you've had, and I'm sorry for the question, but I always like to ask this: how has it changed your life?
Oh, that has changed my life 100% because after I saw that, I've always been kind of a curious person, but after I saw that, game over. I was all about finding out more. And I frankly don't even know if I want to prove that it exists. I just want more experience with it.
And once you've gathered the information, you've taken the pictures, you've had a few more encounters with the Bigfoot. Did you reach out to anybody to submit a report to anybody? Did you call anybody? Did you email anybody about what you saw?
Yes, I did. Actually, at the time, uh, I had just started talking to Thomas Markham. He's the founder of the Crypto Crew research team. And he kind of, I don't know if I kind of like to say took me under his wing and taught me a few things that I wasn't aware of yet. He's a great guy. He's very intelligent. He knows his Bigfoot stuff. And everything that he's ever told me, I've experienced similar things. And the things that I haven't experienced that he's told me just simply makes perfect sense to me.
And it's through Zombie Media that the documentary was recorded and then released as well, right?
Yes, Zombie Media was actually the publishing company that Thomas runs, and he was a great help with that.
So did he travel up to your direction, or did you travel to him?
I went to Kentucky. He's not yet been up here. Um, the times that hasn't coincided properly, or of course during COVID, that was an impossibility. But I'm looking forward to going back down there if he would have me again. I That area is fantastic.
So, well, with now, finally, I think we're 3 years removed or 2.5 years removed from all the COVID restrictions, where you can freely travel now and go into the woods or different state parks. Um, aside from Bigfoot, what else have you seen out there? Because I know you're talking about you hearing coyotes or wolves or anything like that, but have you encountered any other type of animal while you're out there?
I have seen. Here's another funny thing about uh, Bigfoot rarely being seen. In all the time that I've spent out in the woods, I've seen maybe a half a dozen foxes. Uh, I've seen one moose and one black bear in the hours upon hours that I've spent out in the woods. So it's not hard for a large animal, creature, however you want to put it, to stay hidden.
Do you go alone in these hikes, or you take somebody with you?
My personal opinion is the fewer the better. Um, I like it to be 2 to 3 at the most. I I've been invited on expeditions where there was like a dozen people, and in my mind, I say it's kind of pointless because with that many people tromping through the woods making that kind of noise, your chances are slim to none.
So, talking about when you're going into the woods, let's say when you go in by yourself, a lot of folks have different answers on how they prepare themselves when they go out on a hike or for a hunt. And I mean a hunt not to kill, but to try to get another look or another experience with Bigfoot or Sasquatch or any other type of thing like that. Um, I've known some people that say they don't go with any guns or any kind of weapons. I've known people that go out there with just a knife and simple camping supplies. What do you equip yourself with when you go out in the woods?
There's a handful of things I always make sure I have. I always have some kind of pocket knife, not anything like a Rambo knife or anything like that. I certainly have some kind of means to start a fire, whether it be a flint or a torch of some kind. I do, because of one experience that I had, I do carry a handgun with me. And that's just for my own self protection, not because I'm going to shoot a Bigfoot. That's not ever going to happen. It's just in case type of thing. Because there are things out there that can hurt you.
True. Have you ever come close to having to use it as a self defense thing?
I actually have fired it once. I didn't aim it. It was once again, I was getting harassed one day by a pack of coyotes. And well, one evening, it was just after dusk. It was almost to the point of being dark. And I would say probably 8 to 10 of them, like, I guess you could say surrounding me. And a couple of them came into sight, and I had no choice but to draw my weapon. I fired it in the air and scared them away, which is good for me because I really didn't want to shoot one anyway.
Right. And I could completely understand that. So now that you've and let me ask you this: how long ago was that? For I didn't never got a year. So how long ago was that?
My sighting?
Yes, sir.
My sighting was in 2012. And the coyote thing was probably 2 to 3 years after my first sighting. That's when I decided I'm not going out there without protection.
I wouldn't either. I don't blame you on that one. With your experiences so far and the research you've done and the things you learned from Thomas Markham, in your opinion, because they can vary a lot of them, where do you think this creature, Bigfoot, falls under in the evolutionary chain? Is it more man than beast, or you think it's more beast than a man, or are we looking somewhere in the middle?
That's a question that I've been asked more than once. I can only give my opinion. I'm not going to say it's solid fact. From everything that I've seen, everything that I've learned, and everything that I've read, it's somewhere on the evolutionary scale beyond Gigantopithecus, blackie, which is a large, pretty much orangutan looking ape that was up to 10 feet tall. I couldn't say with any confidence whether I thought it was more man or more beast. The way it looked at me, couple times that it did, the curiosity level was through the roof that he was showing. So I'm going to say, I want to say it's probably early man, but obviously with all the hair all over its body and kind of the way it carried itself was sort of more ape. Like its legs weren't real long like a gorilla would be. Its arms were longer than a normal person. As I don't want to say it's the missing link either, because that's not my thing. But
No, and I'm kind of the same way with you. I'm not really sold on the whole missing link thing at this point in my life. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
It's just hard to put a finger on it, which is why I want to know more.
So, other than when you met Thomas Markham, have you reached out to any other investigators and gone out with them? I know not in a large group because we talked about there's a lot of disadvantages to being in a large group.
Right.
Have you been learning from others?
I've talked a lot with a few. I've been out with a couple. I haven't spoken to them ahead of time, so I'm not sure if I'm comfortable saying their names or not. Probably Bill Brock wouldn't mind. He's an investigator in Maine. He and I have hung out on numerous occasions and talked and so forth. Aside from Thomas, and there's been a couple here and there that have just asked me if they can come with me. And I'm kind of strict on who I take out and what their thoughts are about going out. But I have gone out with a couple of different fellows from, well, one guy came from Massachusetts to come up and go on an investigation with me. But I kind of prefer alone because I sort of set in my ways on how I go about things. And not everyone in this field sees eye to eye. So I just think it's better mostly to go alone. And I very much enjoyed going out with Thomas that day that we did, because he and I pretty much think alike.
And when the documentary was filmed and then released, I know because it's available on Tubi, Bigfoot Witness. Have you had a lot of feedback from that film? Have a lot more people reached out to you since then?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people, and frankly, I'm not sure if it's the book or the film. It probably is pretty close to 50-50, but I've had an awful lot of Facebook friend requests. I've gotten a lot of messages saying that they'd seen the film and wanted to talk to me about it. And I've always tried to get back to them in a timely fashion. I enjoy talking about it. I love doing it. And if I have a chance to learn something from somebody else or teach somebody something else that maybe they weren't aware of, then I'm happy to do it.
With the added knowledge and experience that you have in this field, I know you just wrote a book, more of a Western style. Do you think you'll ever write a book about your experiences?
That's crossed my mind. But the second installment of my book is going to feature a Bigfoot, kind of putting two of my favorite things into one.
Also, so with that, so are you currently working on that story?
Yes, I am. It's going a completely, well, of course, the story itself is different, but I'm going into a area that I'm not really sure how to go, but I'm plugging away at it, and both of my parents and a couple of my friends have read what I've written so far, and they like it. So I guess I'm doing all right.
No, and you are with the growing popularity of the subject of Bigfoot. Are you interested in anything other than Bigfoot? I mean, are you into paranormal or UFOs or anything like that as well?
I've worked with a group out of New Hampshire called STIRS, Searching the Unknown Realm Society. Their founders are good friends of mine. There have been times that they've had reports of hauntings and at the same place, strange noises out in the woods. So they tend to contact me when there's something like that and ask me to come and join them on their research. And I've gone to a few places with them just simply doing ghost hunting. One insane asylum in Rhode Island, New York. That one was in New York, and a couple others. But mostly I focus on Bigfoot and Dogman are the ones that interest me the most.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Dogman. There's been a lot of reports of Dogman, not only actually here in the United States, but also in the UK. I had an interview with a gentleman last year where I think now there have been having sightings of Dogman over there as well. But now that I skipped the part about you going out there with this groups about paranormal investigating, while you were with that group, and I know you're a Bigfoot guy, I'm a Bigfoot guy as well, but I'm also dealt with paranormal. How was your experience with that group? Did you actually get to hear or see anything while you were there?
When we were at that insane asylum, that place was crazy. That made me they laughed at me and say, you walk out through the woods looking for a 9.5 foot tall monster and you're afraid of a little ghost. Like, well, I can't see it. And we were in one of the rooms that was supposedly extremely haunted. And the temperature all of a sudden out of nowhere dropped about 10 to 15 degrees. And I was doing an EVP, and something that I couldn't see standing in front of me, I could feel two hands on my chest and push me backwards towards the door of the room. And that was harrowing, to say the least.
Wow. Now, did they leave any marks on you or anything like that?
No, there was no marks. It was just a physical push, like I don't want you here, get out. And I had told everyone in the group. I think there was 6 or 7 of us there because the place was huge, and they were all like, I can't remember, that was a class 2 experience, I think they called it, but it was odd because I hadn't really ever been a ghost guy, but that made me kind of more of a believer.
Would you ever go on another one again?
Sure, especially with that group, but I'd go on others.
And then, so before going out with that group, and then before your sighting of Bigfoots while you were out there in the woods of New Hampshire, growing up, is that something that always interested you? Did you have any experiences like paranormal back then?
No, it was more as a kid, I guess it was more of imagination. It was kind of, well, not kind of. It was most certainly the Patterson-Gimlin footage that really piqued my interest. And I still watch it frequently to this day, and I can't find a thing wrong with it. Pretty much anything that had Bigfoot topic, whether it was when I was like 6 or 7, when the Bionic Man episodes come on that had Andre the Giant as Bigfoot, I'd make sure to always watch them. It was just pretty much the topic itself, and I've loved it, and I've been fascinated and intrigued. The older I get, the more curious and the more intrigued I get, because I'm able to. Obviously, I'm not young anymore, so have a little bit of an IQ. And,
No, none of us are as young as we used to be. But Well, let me ask you this. You're talking about the Gimlin film, and there's been a string of current ones out there now that, in my opinion, possibly hoaxes. But here's the problem with a lot of these films, and I don't mean to knock anybody, is the fact that we're all so, I guess we could say, skeptical of a lot of things now because we don't know if we're being fooled or not. But
Yeah.
is there something out there today that you think maybe is the real deal, the real video? Can you remember anything you've seen so far, video wise?
Besides the Patterson Gimlin footage,
Yes, sir.
the Freeman footage was great. One of my favorites is Harley Hoffman, because in that video, the subject in question actually looked like it had some kind of a skin disease, like almost like mange. And like I always say with a PG video, who would have thought in 1967 to make that subject female? Because it obviously was. With the Hoffman video, having it have some kind of skin irritation or some kind of problem with hair growth, fur growth, whatever it is. It's either someone brilliant or someone just lucky to just think that up and hoax it. The Memorial Day footage of the creature running across the field, that apparently has been deemed a hoax. That was a good one too, because they had some kind of professional runner, whether it was I'm not sure if it was an Olympian or what it was, he was wearing like a satellite device, tried to run that same course and couldn't do it at the same speed that the subject in the video did it. So I don't know about that one.
Interesting, because let me ask this then. For those of us who are not as experienced, say yourself or Thomas, and we start seeing a lot of these videos that are floating around out there. Some of them are obviously, I would say, a hoax. A lot of them are, I put them in the area of I don't know. So let's say a video comes out, I guess, introduced into the social media, into the YouTubes and all that jazz, right? What should we, as an unexperienced person, be looking for in these videos to be able to determine whether they're valid or not?
Well, that would my reply to that would change from one video to another for a few different reasons. Like I had mentioned prior when I said, if you think you can hold the camera steady when you're filming something like this, you're probably a better person than I would be. The ones that are crystal clear, not shaky, I look at them really carefully before I either nod or shake my head. The problem is there are so many blatant hoaxes out there, and it's kind of made people who do cryptozoology things, whether it be for a living or just as a favorite pastime like I do, it kind of makes some of them really make us look foolish for continuously going out and continuously looking. But from my experiences, that's why I do it, because I know it's real.
That's an awesome answer. As you're saying this, and I'm thinking, and I have several opinions of this myself. So, and it's okay if nobody agrees with it. That's great. It falls into certain categories. I don't have one, two, or three, but I'll say one. Some people, if they do a hoax, they do it for fun and as a joke, as having a good time.
Right.
I think that's fine because it is what it is.
Yes.
Two, I think that some of them are made just to make people like you and I, because the same thing with paranormal videos or UFO videos. I think they're intentionally put out there in order to make us look foolish so nobody can take us seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that one time where we can have a perfectly good, honest to God video of something, and immediately people are gonna question that because they've been burned so many times by other videos.
Right. And I've had photos of mine say, "No, that's not real." And I take it in stride. I'm not saying that anybody has to agree with me or believe in the subject. But all I know is I see what I see, and I'm not stupid, and I'm knowledgeable about the outdoors, and it's not misidentification a majority of the time. It's real.
Yeah, man, I'm totally with you on that. Because also, there is the ones that always say, well, it's a bear. Well, I think by now, we all know the difference between a bear and a Bigfoot. That's the difference.
Yeah, there's plenty of differences. A bear won't run on two legs. It's very awkward when it even gets up on two legs. There's, it's not even, it's apples and oranges, in my opinion. Another good thing that I like from skeptics is, well, if they're really out there, how come no one's found any bones? And I say, my first answer always is, how many skeletons of a black bear have you seen out in the woods? How many skeletons of a moose or a deer have you seen just randomly out in the woods? And they're like, oh, well, like, okay, I thought so.
Yes, because the woods will pretty much take back what it gave birth to. Because unless they have burial rituals, I mean, the animals, birds will just eat it. And then it goes to the normal decomposition as a human body would as well.
Yeah, I agree. And especially in areas with evergreen trees, because when like pine or spruce needles drop, when it decomposes, it creates an acidic type formula, I guess is the word I'm thinking of. And it will actually more rapidly decompose a body. So if the death happens in the late summer, early fall, and the chances of seeing anything really between scavengers, the natural decomposition, and even porcupines and a few other animals will eat bone. So it's chances of remains, unless it's fresh, are pretty slim, I think.
I agree, especially with so much land out there, so much acreage in national forest. Not many people walk those every day to actually see something there anyway. So I
Right.
agree with you, my friend. Now, for the listeners of Let's Find Out that want to learn more about what it is that you do and your research and your book and the second book coming out and also the documentary, where can they go to find out more about what you do?
As far as the book, that's available on Amazon Prime, Amazon store, paperback and hardcover. And there's an audiobook available, narrated by a really good guy. He's an awesome narrator, Duke Butler. The movie can be found on Tubi and on Prime Video. You can rent or purchase it on Prime Video if you'd like. And the second book is going to be The Road to Leadville 2, Tundra's Journey. And I'm hoping that people enjoy reading it as much as I've enjoyed attempting to write it.
And when that second book comes out, and as you go out there and find out more and do more research on Bigfoot, if you don't mind, come back on the show and share more about what it is that you're doing, and we'll talk about that second book.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to keep in touch, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Please check us out on all our social media, YouTube, and we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Let's Find Out is now on KGRA digital broadcasting. Catch the show on Saturdays at 2 a.m. For more information, please visit kgradb.com. That's kgradb.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania.
All content for Let's Find Out is property of CoHostDiego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, CoHostDiego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.